Here's my audience. And here are my note cards. Have you ever wanted to add numbers more quickly? How about find the amount of something really fast? If so, multiplication will be useful for you. Multiplication is an easy way to find out the amount of a large number of things. It can help you get the sum of numbers that you would usually add much quicker. As a student in trigonometry, I have lots of experience with multiplication. It has helped me in many ways, including finding the tax of something I'm paying for at a store, cooking, and grocery shopping. Today, we will be learning how to multiply, do a little multiplication practice with practice problems, and learn a couple multiplication tips and tricks. To begin, let's first talk about what multiplication truly is. Now, you can easily break multiplication down into two parts. Number one, find out the number in a group multiplied by the number of groups. So to demonstrate that, let's go to our first practice problem. Step number one is find out the number in one group. We can go to our first problem and go to one singular group and count 1, 2. That is now in our first section of the equation. Now we move on to our second step. Find out the number of groups. We can count that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There are six groups in total. So our equation is 2 times 6. And to find out our answer, we can do that by multiples of 2. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. So our answer to 2 times 6 equals 12. Now we will move on to a couple of different practice problems. Our next practice problem is 2 times 3, and we will demonstrate that with oranges. So here is our first practice problem. And to figure it out, we can refer back to our two steps. Our first step is to figure out the number in a group. So we can go to our first group and count how many are in that. 1, 2. There are 2 oranges in our first group. Now we will refer to our second step, which is to count the number of groups. 1, 2, 3. There are 3 groups in total, so now we can add to our equation 2 times 3. To figure out the answer to that equation, we can do multiples of 2. 2, 4, 6. So from our two steps, we have gathered that 2 times 3 equals 6. Now we can move on to our second practice problem. Our second practice problem is this. So go to our first step, number in a group. Go to our first group, 1, 2. There are 2 oranges in the first group, multiplied by the number of groups, 1, 2. There are 2 groups in total. So 2 multiplied by 2 equals, we can find that out by using multiples of 2, 2, 4. So we can infer that 2 times 2 equals 4. Now we can move on to our next practice problem. So to find out the answer to this problem, we need to go to our first step, number in a group, go to our first group, 1, 2, 3, 4, multiplied by the number of groups, 1, 2, and use that to find our answer. So our equation, 4 multiplied by 2, we can find that out by using multiples of 4, 4, and 8. So 4 times 2 equals 8. Our last practice problem can be demonstrated on this whiteboard. So if we infer with our two-step problems, to find out our first number in the equation, we need to use the number in one group. So we can count that out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So our first number of the equation is 5 because there are 5 in one group. Next, we need to count how many groups there are in total. 1, 2, 3. So our equation is 5 times 3. And to revert back to our addition, we know that 5 times 3 is equal to 5 plus 5 plus 5, which we can also figure out what that is by doing multiples of 5. 5, 10, and 15. So 5 times 3 equals 15. Now that you have a handle on multiplication, we can go into some tips and tricks about multiplication. Our first tip is that anything multiplied by 0 equals 0. This is true because if we look back to our 2 steps, we can do our number in our group. So let's say there are 2 in a group, multiplied by the number of groups. But because there are no groups to multiply our first number by, because 0 is nothing, we will always end up with 0 as our answer. 2 multiplied by 0 will always equal 0. So will any other number. Our next tip is that anything multiplied by 1 equals the first number. So, as an example, there are 4, 1, 2, 3, 4 in one group. 4 multiplied by 1 would be our equation. So therefore, 4 multiplied by 1 would equal 4, which was our initial number. And that would be true with any other numbers. Now that you have learned how to multiply, go use it in your everyday life. To conclude, multiplication is a very helpful tool. It makes math faster, easier, and more efficient. Multiplication is the gateway tool to all other kinds of harder math, including division, decimals, fractions, and all other types of math, and higher up maths, including trigonometry, algebra 2, geometry, and others. Memorizing your multiplication tables will help you be more successful later in your life. Good luck in your math endeavors. Here is my audience.